through all those books that we haven't done in a graduate course, but I just haven't had the opportunity to do that. Anyway. So those books you guys will have to read on your own. I assure you, Numbers, Leviticus will have the same problems we're finding in Exodus. Samuel is it's totally the same way, books of Samuel. And one of the problems that most people talk about the Bible is they haven't read it. They haven't really seriously read it. And of course it's a very exciting book too, because that even makes it more exciting to see how complex, how much stuff really went into it. You know, it's not some supernatural document, it's an actual document of the culture of the people. Okay, so let's see. We were talking about Joshua, and we got up to the fact that Joshua, the first part of the book, is very, very effusive about how much Joshua did and so on and so forth. I would say very, very pro-Joshua. And then suddenly, when we get to almost a turning point, like after this proportionment after this list of all the kings that he supposedly, or whoever these leaders that he supposedly conquered, 31, a kind of recapitulation, if you like, at chapter 12, really from 13 onwards is a new book, almost a totally different book. And it's really not really the same outlook at all, yeah.
Where exactly are you?
Chapter 13 of Joshua. Yeah, it's not really the same material as you see, because you see, suddenly Joshua is an old man. And I'll show you another problem before we go any further, so you know that there's lots of materials that they're culling and putting in a final form here. Joshua dies at the end of Joshua, the book of Joshua. So it says, Judges chapter 1, after the death of Joshua, etc., 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 it says, which shall march up first against the Canaanites to attack them? And this is another version. Judah goes first, and they haven't even marched up against the Canaanites at all, according to this, even after Joshua dies. So that's 3 different versions right there. So Joshua is already dead there, but I think you'll find, just to show how complicated this is, in chapter 2:6 of Judges, Joshua's alive again. He's died twice, basically, and suddenly he's back alive again. Now, I mean, look, all of the people who speak of the Word of God and all this sort of thing, I'm very sympathetic to. I find the book very impressive book. But how they can overlook issues of this kind is beyond my comprehension. Yeah.
In the New Testament, they make so much theology about the one little passage where Jesus dies and then descends and then comes back up. Did that same kind of mythology not develop around?
No, but I think they may have taken that from this, because Jesus is Joshua. So he's alive again, you know. I have a feeling that there may have been something in the back of their brain. They knew the book pretty well, and they may have said, oh, there's something there about Joshua being dead and alive again, and so on. So I think that the text line theory solves that problem for you more, that you've got just different text lines that are, you know, collected in a certain way. Joshua told the people to go, line 2:6, each to his own possession, and so on and so forth. And I don't know if Joshua died. Oh yeah, there it is. Joshua 2:8. Joshua, son of Nun, servant of Yahweh, died when he was 110 years old. They buried him in a state, so he's died again. Now, of course, that's just overlapping material. I mean, that's not enough to build a resurrection theory upon. I mean, that's just literary overlap of different text lines. But what is amazing to me is that it took till the 1900s for people to even discover this. What were the people 19th centuries doing? That's what I mean, we're not any smarter than any of those people. Why couldn't they see any of this? What, I mean, I'm just a little person in a classroom in California. How come it's clear to anyone reading it that there are these issues and nobody all the time who was carrying the Bible around ever spoke of it? I think it's because people are easily convinced themselves not to question things. They easily, you know, put themselves under authority. So, oh, well, I can't say anything about that. You know, that's above me. I'm not on that level. There must be some other explanation for all of this. And they just, any disquiet they have, they just silence. And I think it goes on everywhere today. It goes on even politically. I'm not speaking about the Bush issues because I don't think that he did anything wrong in this particular recent matter. I would do the same thing if someone got a job like that on the campus and his wife was in the office and someone, I would say things about him to my colleagues for sure. So I don't think that's a great sin, frankly, but you can make a big thing out of it as you want. No, I'm talking about the whole Islamic world where people are afraid to speak. I'm talking about even communist China, if it's still communist, I don't know, where people wouldn't dare speak out. Russia, where they wouldn't dare speak out. Issues that are bothering people, afraid of authority. That's what it comes down to. I am afraid. And so, you know, that to me is shocking that you have 3 versions of Joshua's death. And he's already died twice, basically. So that, I think, shows you. Yeah, here it is. Now Joshua, line 13, was old and advanced, chapter 13, was old and advanced in years. And Yahweh said to him, you're old now, yet much of the country remains to be subdued. We're back in Joshua now. So we did this last time, to some extent. And what they do is they divide the land, but it hasn't been conquered yet. And in chapter 14, in fact, a new character is introduced. Even though he would have, if we had read Numbers and Leviticus, we would have already met him, I think. He's called Eleazar the priest, 14:1. And he wasn't there before in this situation that I'm aware of. And he's being insinuated into the text the same way Aaron is insinuated into the other Exodus text. Because he's a son of Aaron. He's one of Aaron's sons. So again, I'm not saying he wasn't there with Joshua, but the conceit of the presentations usually is everyone died in the wilderness because of alleged infractions that were carried out there. I mean, it's obviously a retrospective view of the situation. If they were in the wilderness, I'm sure they didn't all die, and if they did all die, it's because they were in the wilderness so long that everyone got old and died. In any case, the conceit is that only Joshua survived. Moses didn't even survive. He didn't come over into the land. And because everyone's supposed to decide. But here, you see, here we have a lot of people who survived. Eleazar survives. Caleb survives. So we have quite a few people who are surviving, not just Joshua. So anyway, this is I can't help you much with the book of Joshua. It's a very difficult book in terms of what you want to finally conclude. And I don't know what you want to finally conclude about the conquest, that is. Was it a violent, huge conquest? Was it a minimal conquest? Did they actually put everyone to the sword like they're talking about here? Or is that just some sort of picture that they want later generations to think? Or was it a much more messy, uneven affair? I think that it was a messy, uneven affair. And modern scholars ask, did they all go to Egypt in the first place? Didn't some groups remain behind anyway? How many people actually went down to Egypt? How many people were in Egypt? How many left? All these questions are unanswerable. Maybe one doesn't have any of those questions, but that's what modern scholars do argue about, things of that kind. Anyway, so in line 6, the sons of Judah come to Joshua at Gilgal. Now again, Joshua looks like he's never even gotten up to the highlands, because if you have a map in your mind of where everything is, just starting by the Jordan River at Gilgal. He's not even up to Bethel or I have a note here, 1951. There's some sort of, let's see, he's at Shiloh, I think. Let's see what we have here. These are the inheritances which Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of each family apportioned by lot among the tribes of Israel at Shiloh. So at one point he's at Gilgal, the next we hear he's at Shiloh. You say, well, what's that to me? Well, Shiloh is not down by the Jordan River, if you know anything about Palestinian geography. Shiloh is up along the hump of the ridge line that goes from Hebron in the south to Shechem in the north. And it's a shrine not far from Shechem. It's the shrine of Eli. So even, again, that sounds like these things are Shiloh traditions associated with the shrine at Shiloh. Again, I can't tell you where Shiloh is without looking at a map, but if you look at a map, you'll see it, like what on the board again, I guess. If you look at your map, if you look at the map again, the back of the book, all right, this is Transjordan. Some of the tribes stay over here. Reuben, or with a B or I, Gad, and half Manasseh. And that's going to come to be a problem at the end of Judges, actually. And then this is the north here. This is Galilee, but they're not up in Galilee too much at this point. And this highlands of Ephraim is here. And pardon me. Jerusalem is sort of in the middle. Hebron is down here, David's city. Bethlehem is here. And then Bethel is here. Today it's Ramallah. The Arabs all talk about Ramallah. Ram-Allah, hill of God. Bethel, house of God. It's Ramallah today. And then this is Nablus, which is Shechem. Nablus is new city on the old city of Shechem. And Shiloh is somewhere over here. I didn't get room for it, but it's in there. And Gilgal, of course, Gilgal is down here. So when he's at Shiloh, he can't be at Gilgal. But, you know, most people who read this, had they any even sense of what the country looked like in their mind? All the people all over the world who read this? No, I don't think so. You'd have to go to the country and feel it. I mean, I've been there enough times that I know it pretty much by the palm of my hand, even though I've been back recently. But, so, I mean, all these things kind of jump out when you've been there and you know it. Anyway, Eleazar the priest and Joshua now are doing it together, the way Moses and Aaron did. And I kind of accept this more than the Moses and Aaron thing. I mean, I think Eleazar and Joshua could very well have operated in a tandem. In any case, we know that Joshua, according to the previous presentation, was Moses' adjutant or servant or something. I am 85 years old, line 11. I am still strong as when Moses sent me out to fight. But it's time you gave me the highlands that you always promised me. I want my estate. I want my retirement. Give me my retirement place. I was promised this. And so, any case, this is Caleb talking. Actually, this is not even Joshua. This is Caleb. They didn't even know that Caleb had been promised something. Sounds like Joshua. So the highlands, this is the southern highlands by Hebron. So they gave him Hebron. Pardon me, I thought this was Joshua. It's Caleb. And hence Hebron down to the present day has remained in possession of Caleb. So down to when? When did God write this? He didn't write it. That people wrote it, because they say down to the present day. When is the present day? When we're writing this, whatever that is. The descendants of Caleb are in Hebron. Tradition of their family. Okay, so then we give some of the genealogies of Judah, since Hebron, Caleb is a Judahite. Now chapter 16, well, we can say end of 15 again. 1563. And the sons of Judah did not drive out the Jebusites who live in Jerusalem. The Jebusites live in Jerusalem side by side with the sons of Judah, as they still do today. When is that? Again, the present. And look, they didn't even have Jerusalem. Well, that may give you a good dating tool here. That this was written before the Davidic conquest, because David conquered Jerusalem about 1000 BC and built the temple there. Yeah.
Old Testament kind of reads like more history than theology.
Oh, of course.
As you oppose it to the Quran, which is almost purely theology.
Oh, of course. There's no comparison.
Is there any scholarship on how they created a religion out of historical books? I mean, God almost seems as a secondary character here.
Well, you're asking it back to front question. Those other people made a religion out of this. Paul and Muhammad and people like that, by selectively taking things and making a theology. This is not a theology book. This is the, how do you make Hinduism out of India? India is a pastiche of culture, traditions, gods, history, literature, and so on. That's what this is. This is the culture and literature of a people. So this is not, the religion happens to be part of it. I don't think Jews today know what Judaism is. So, I mean, you're asking a question. Judaism isn't like Christianity or Islam, that you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 and enumerate what it is. Just honor some of the traditions that are spoken of in books like this. So it isn't, I believe in Jesus Christ and I'm saved, or there are 5 pillars of Islam and that's it. No, it isn't like that. It's, any Jew, ask a Jew, they don't even know what it is themselves.
So would you argue that the reason that it's, or the fact that it's so historical is the reason that the Reform or Reconstructionists are able to still identify themselves with the religion?
Well, the question you're asking are modern theological problems, which frankly, I'll be honest, really don't interest me because they have no answer.
I can definitely tell.
No, they don't interest me because that's not for this class. I'm going to do a modern Jewish thought and Zionism class next year. You're welcome to come in and discuss those questions. But I mean, an Old Testament class, we're dealing with the book that we have before us, not what people make of the book. There's nothing, I want you to learn about the book if you want to talk about theology. But I absolutely don't want to talk about theology because there's nothing to talk about theology here. You know, that's a much later subject. Rabbis might talk about theology as a Reconstructionism. That's 3,500 years later. Half of the Jewish people I know don't even read the Old Testament anyway. I've never even met any of them that know 3/4 of what's in here. They always go by what Rabbi this said, Rabbi that said in the 600 AD period, or what Hillel said, or this other person, or that other person. And they don't really relate to the Old Testament. They read a few choice passages and that's it. So I'm trying to get you to be able to read the Old Testament yourself. The conclusions you want to draw is you don't want me to go through the stuff. You want me to talk about theology. I feel that that is a conclusion you have to deal with yourself. That is not I'm not a preacher or a theologian to draw theological answers. That's for you to decide. I can lay them
My
again.
question was more aimed at, I don't see how a theology could be drawn.
Well, that's not such so you don't see, but it's nothing to do.
I was wondering.
No, but I mean, it's nothing to do with me because, frankly, I'm not trying to draw theology out of here. And I'm just trying to see what the book says. Anyone who wants to draw a theology can do it themselves. So you can do whatever you want. Paul has his theology. Muhammad has his theology. Rabbi this has his theology. Madonna has her theology. I met Madonna. She says, whatever I say Kabbalah is, that's what it is. Well, okay, Madonna, fine. But I can't argue or discuss things like that with people. That's a matter of point of view of a person who's looking for meaning in life. And I'm only teaching, I'm not trying to look for meaning in life, because I don't think you'll ever find it necessarily. So I'm just looking to raise up your cultural awareness and heritage of what's in the book and what the issues and problems are for you to decide what you want to make of it afterwards. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I want to try to get through this book because there's an awful lot to go through. So if we had a problem, if we had a possibility, and if these classes were big enough, plus if we had the money at Cal State, we'd have discussion sections where we'd have graduate assistants and others, if we had the proper university here, would be able to be funded to lead these kinds of discussion sections, because they are important things to chat about. But the problem is that when we do that, we just take away from what we're doing in the other things, and we can't get through the material. So, I understand what your dilemma is. Anyway, I'm going to teach a modern Jewish thought Zionism class next year, and that might be interesting to discuss what Reconstructionists and historical school people and conservative Jews or Orthodox Jews think of this material and so on, or make of it. But I don't know how they get a religion out of here myself. But on the other hand, how do Hindus get a religion out of what they do? I mean, and do we want a religion out of something? I mean, isn't that a personal matter? I mean, you have to organize a religion around something. This is an incredibly interesting ancient cultural document with a lot of power. And if you compare it to the Quran, and you can bang me over the head for saying that, we've just been doing the Joseph story in the Quran, and I don't think there's any comparison between the Joseph story in the Quran and the Joseph story here.
The power the book has is due to the theology that it evokes.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's the power at all. What theology? I mean, the power is that it's powerful. That's a powerful literature here, and it moves you. And if you want to look at the world in terms of their outlook, a God or something moving through history, that's your conclusion to draw. I hope that, in fact, such a God is there. I'm certainly happy if he or she is, but it's not something that I can conclude. Of course, because I don't think this is written by divine hands. It's written by human beings. And I'm showing you over and over and over again where it's written by human beings. Maybe inspired by such a force or power. I frankly feel that it would be very exciting if it were. You know, very exciting. I would hope that God is still moving through history. But when I see things like the Holocaust, or I see things like Jimmy Carter as a president who wants the Israelis to give everything away, back to be fair, when they hardly can survive themselves, or when I see people like, I use Carter as an example because he was pressing them greatly to make concessions constantly. George Bush Sr. the same. When I see people like the Premier of Iran threatening to eradicate them, I wonder if there is a God moving through any history. Or we're just back to square one. Anyway, this book moves people, and it's because of this book that those people went back. And I, frankly, am very impressed by what they've done, and I'm all power to them. It doesn't matter to me if the God is a myth in terms of human creation, or if the God is really something that's there. The point is, the book has moved them to do this. And that's really great stuff. I hope they succeed. I really do. You say, well, if you hope they succeed, what are you doing here? Because I don't feel like getting killed, if you want my honest opinion. I'm a coward, and I don't want my children to get killed. And it's as simple as that. I was there for 4 or 5 years, and I was not happy with the arguments that they had with each other, and the fact that they were not interested in other people coming to the country and making a go of it. They wanted all to take everything themselves and hold on for dear life what they had. And that's not human selfishness. Certainly if you're from a refugee from Holocaust and things like that, to behave like that. But life's too short for me to have put my children through that. So I came to California and became an airhead. And my kids are happier, and so I'm out of the danger. But I do respect and admire anyone who's willing to go through the valley of the shadow of death that those people are going. Surrounded by murderers and lunatics on every side. Okay? Then you got me to say it. Which I don't really want to say. That's what the book does. The book moves you. If you're a Christian, it moves you. If you're Jewish, it moves you. I won't speak about Muslims, because Muslims don't read this book. They're forbidden to read these kinds of books. So what use is it? They're not interested in anything that's theology at work, and I think theology is a horrendous thing. blocks people's minds, it reduces people's minds. Therefore, that's the last thing I want to do with this book, is look for the theology. I'll let you do it. Anyway, the book moves one. Even these different versions of Joshua is moving, trying to figure out what actually happened, and that's the best I can do for it. So, the Jebusites are still there. So this is a contradictory testimony. This says that all that came before is really propaganda. But it's honest in that one lot says it happened one way, another lot said it happened another way. None of them doubt the fact that there's some divine force that's moving through these events. They just don't think, they don't agree how these things occur. And my conclusion is, I have no idea if they occurred like this at all, except that something occurred. But this is what they know, and it's more than, if you, as I've told you before, think back about your grandfather, your great-grandfather, I'll bet you don't even know I bet you don't even know 10 events in your great-grandfather's life. I bet you don't know. And your great-great-grandfather, I'll bet you don't even know what street he lived on unless you were all living in the same house forever, or what shop he went to, you know, anything about what he did in his life, what his feelings were, or anything. So you think, this is terrible here, well, this is not clear. Whoa, not clear? This is 100 times clearer than anything most people know about their ancestry. This is incredibly clear by comparison to what you can do in your family traditions. Maybe yours are better than mine, but in my family, my own brother, he doesn't even know who his grandfather was. So, I mean, you know, it's almost, most people know nothing about their heritage except what they can remember themselves in their own lifetime. So, this is incredible. Look at this book. It's a vast book. So, I think that's enough to ask from it. It would be an incredibly ancient witness. If there's another ancient witness of this kind from early times in any other culture in mankind, from China to Greece to Italy, I'd like to see it. So even that's an amazing thing. The Egyptians do have, because they wrote it on a lot of their tombs, but it's just because luckily they wrote some stuff on those tombs that we know something. But even that's very sketchy. I think if you go back, I mean, this is more than the Greeks have. This is more really than the Hindus probably have. They have one epic, the Mahabharata, but I don't think they know very much about their ancient past. This is really impressive. Anyway, it has the flaws that we're looking at, just because people have tried to press too much from it. Anyway, the 16. Now the sons of Joseph, they're second. They get Bethel, you see. The sons of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, line 4, but look at the conclusion. But the Canaanites living in Gezer, line 10, which is one of their inheritors, were not driven out. They remain in Ephraim to the present day. So basically, most of these places, they did not drive the people out according to this narrative. So the next group, Manasseh. You give all what Manasseh was given up to line 12, 13, and there it is again. However, when the Israelites became strong, but because the sons of Manasseh could not take possession of these towns, the Canaanites managed to hold their own in the country. And however, when the Israelites became stronger, they put the Canaanites, some of them, to forced labor, though they never drove them out. Over and over again. So this is a totally different text, as well, I'm trying to show you, best I can do, than 1 to 13. So the house of Joseph is very angry. Well, why have you given me inheritance only one share when my people are so many? This is their pretense. Line 17, you are a large population, Joshua says, and great strength. You shall not have one, but you shall have double share. But the mountain shall be yours. Now the mountain is Gerizim. It's the mountain by Shechem, where Joshua finally, at the end of this, see my trousers are falling down again. It's this belt that keeps, I pulled it and now it's stretched. So what I do is I open my trousers to belt it up, and then the result is what you've noticed. So if my pants are falling down, you'll understand why. So Gerizim is the mountain, Mount Ebal and Gerizim, but that was where the Samaritans were, and it's in Shechem here. Gerizim. That's where the Shechem the Joshua people. So these are all northern traditions. So the mountain shall be yours, but you shall clear it. But since you cannot drive out the Canaanites, line 18, because of the iron chariots, now that's a total confusion. It's clear from other narratives that we have that what happened when the Philistine came, they brought iron metallurgy, the knowledge of iron metallurgy. And that's why archaeology ranks all this stuff when they do theoretical archaeology by Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and so on. Because they realize that the Iron Age people have superior technology to the Bronze or Copper Age people. And therefore their weapons can't stand up to the Iron Age. And here's an admission that they don't even have the sophistication of the kind of chariots that the lowland people. But the point is that most people and most traditions feel that's not a Canaanite issue. Gaza is down here, as you know. And so this is here like Philistine area. Not talked about yet, but it's going to come into it. And you see, this is all flat. This is where the Israelis are now, because the Israelis never did conquer the hill country. They only took the flatlands where the Philistines were before. You know the word Palestine? Do you know what word that comes from? Philistine. That's where Palestine comes from. And in Arabic, it's Philistine. Palestine is Philistine land. So it's weird. The modern Palestinians actually are calling themselves Philistines, but they're living in the hill country. The Israelis are calling themselves Israelis, and they're down in the Philistine area. It's totally reversed. You know, it's a weird sort of reversal that has gone on. And Palestine is just an English version of Philistine, a Roman. The British were interested in Greek and Latin, and they read their Roman text, and they knew that the Romans were calling this place on purpose when they eradicated the Jewish presence there, Palestina. They went back to the old Greek name, Philistina, Palestina. And because they knew what we had forgotten, the Philistines were Greek people, probably Mycenaean. And we know from their pottery and their technology that that's the case. Well, there's a place here called the Emek. Emek means valley. It's a flat area here. So they could run their chariots through there. That's why Galilee is separate, because Galilee is hill country again. This is a valley here, and this is Ephraim, and then down here is flat again, going up this way. So they could run all their chariots around like this, but they couldn't take the hills, because the chariots couldn't go up into the hills. So these are like, the Israelites are like hill country guerrillas. They're like sort of the hillbillies in Kentucky and Tennessee and places like that. But they admit that here, but they got it confused. It's not the Canaanites who have the chariots. It's the Philistines who have the chariots. The Canaanites are primarily a Bronze Age people. So again, there's an error there. But these are traditions which are conserved. We're grateful for what we have, it seems to me, is what I try to imply. Okay, so now they're all at Shiloh, line 18, chapter 18. Somehow they've gotten away from Gilgal. So these are probably, some of those traditions are, again, shrine traditions at Gilgal, and others are shrine traditions at Shiloh. You see, there weren't one temple, there were separate shrines at different places. Bethel, Shiloh, Gilgal, we're getting to remember the names here. And look at what Joshua says to them here. Line 3, how much more time will you waste before taking possession of the land that Yahweh, the God of your fathers, gave to you? And then he's going to divide it up again. So they didn't take very much of anything, even by their own testimony in the ways. They slowly took it over, perhaps, but I don't have the answer to what actually happened. So people say, look, you put everyone to the sword. No, I don't think they did. That's just the advertisement they made for themselves. They may have, but I don't think they did very much. Here the Levites are going to have a separate inheritance. Line 7, the Levites will have no portion with the rest, the tribe of Moses. They will be the priesthood. Gad and Reuben and half Manasseh, you've already got yours across Jordan. So they cast lots, supposedly, at Shiloh before God. And I guess they're sort of searching out the land in some way. And this is a tradition from Shiloh, obviously. But there, Joshua's in camp at Shiloh, not at Gilgal. This is a really difficult book. I think you will agree with me. I mean, it's so difficult that I'm not able to make any sense, except something happened that got the Israelites into the land in some way that they want to celebrate. Benjamin. They did his boundaries and gave his towns. But if you notice, if you look at all these towns in Benjamin, line 27, 28 there, Mitzpah, Jerusalem. Jerusalem they hadn't conquered yet. Gibeah, I think Gibeah was the Gibeonites that we had heard previously. Saul ultimately comes from Gibeah, and so Saul is from Benjamin. By the way, you know why I think Paul says that he comes from Benjamin? Because Saul came from Benjamin, his namesake. There was no Benjamin in Paul's time left. That's just a how should we put it, an advertisement. Paul's not from any tribe of Benjamin. It's just that the original Saul was from Benjamin, so it's for the unlettered, it's a useful claim to make, people who were wondering about his ancestry. Plus, there's another thing about the Benjamin notation that I don't, you may have seen it in the stuff you're doing, you may have seen it. Benjamin seems to have been a name for the diaspora at one time and later on, because the War Scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are 1,000 years later, speak of the Benjamin, the diaspora of the desert, it's called. Benjamin, the diaspora of the desert. The camps and the wilderness camps in the desert are called Benjamin in the War Scroll. And I think that also may be where Paul is getting his pretension from there. But anyway, whatever. Simeon, 19. They were taken out of the sons of Judah, line 9, because Judah had too big a share. And then we get Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, all the sons from the sexual relations of Jacob and his daughters. And so now you're seeing, that's a great story that Jacob and the two wives and the handmaids, everything, it just simplifies it all. How did all these tribes come to be? Oh, well, here's the story of how our ancestor Jacob kept sliding people into his bed. And that's why we've got lesser ones and greater ones, because the greater ones, well, they're the sons of the favorite wife and so on. So, I mean, the storyteller makes marvelous stuff out of all this. Whether it's accurate, it's up to you to decide. And again, I told you at one point, I thought again, since you keep now got me worried about this, poetry is truer than history. A statement one of my professors at college made to me, and it's one of the most clear-minded statements any of my professors ever made to me. I never forgot it. And what he was saying was that it isn't what people think happened. It isn't what actually happened. It's what people think happened that's important. Half of the Muslim world, they all think they're descendants of Abraham and Ishmael. Of course they're not descendants of Abraham and Ishmael. Of course they're not descendants of Abraham and Ishmael. If I took their DNA, I'll bet if we could figure out what Abraham's DNA was, maybe 1,000th. Not 100th, but 1,000th of them might have such a DNA pattern. They're all conquered peoples who absorbed the mythology of their conquerors. So now we're all descendants of Ishmael. You know, that's the power of myth and poetry. Great storytelling can do that. And because people don't know that if 30 conscious years and then they die, so they have no idea of almost anything. They come in like, I just saw a little child, I come into class, fall down on the pavement, someone run and pick that little child up. That child's 5 years old. That child knows nothing. 20 years from now, the child might know a little bit. By the time he gets to know someone, he's too old to make any use out of it. And that's the end. And then it's back to the beginning again. So when the poet comes along and makes these stories, it gives a foundation for people to hold on to. And it's true for them, even though to my mind, it has almost no truth whatsoever in it. certainly some of these, I don't think the Jacob and the Esau, the Jacob and his wives really is the origins of these tribes, but it's a great story. And it's so good that we might as well use it. So, anyway, so ended line 49, the drawing of the lots. That means they haven't conquered anything, they just allotted it, and the others have to go get what they can get. That sounds about right to me. And these are the inheritance which Eleazar, line 51, the priest, Joshua son of Nun, drew up at Shiloh. So this was a tradition of the shrine at Shiloh. Now some other stuff. Tradition cities of refuge. So they took out refuge city where a person could run to when the blood avenger was after him or her. And so that they wouldn't have to, that their life wouldn't be taken without some adjudication taking place. They can go for refuge. All this is very theoretical and quite quite interesting, but it's probably not at the time of the conquest. So it gives some towns that become places of refuge, and if you look at them, they're some of the main towns that we've already just heard about. And in 21, the Levites now get their share of the inheritance, line 3 of 21. The Levites, the sons of Aaron the priest. That's really weird because the Levites are not really the sons of Aaron the priest. Although that may be the Levites who are the sons of Aaron. In other words, they have to be circumcised into Aaronites, which is probably what it meant. 13 towns. And again, it seems like 3/4 of the inheritance. 10 towns from all these other places. And look, to the sons of Gershon fell 13 towns. Now, Gershon is Aaron's son, but where's Moses? Doesn't he ever get anything? What happened to Moses? So all this sons of Gershon, line 27, all these towns that the Aaronite clans get, line 9 of chapter 21. I mean, I don't think any of this is fair at all. Not to the Moses. What, Moses doesn't get anything? His descendants are just wiped away? Anyway, the towns also, line 42, they have the pasture land attached to it. That goes with the towns, line 42. Okay, so again, we don't know. I can't tell you what actually happened. Now here's some weird stuff here at the very end. I told you there'd be some stuff here at the end. Something about the Reubenites, Gadites, and Manassites that I don't know if it's at the end of this book or Judges. We'll see. Joshua discharges them. Says, "Oh no, they did okay. You faithfully did your job. You can go back now. You helped. You did everything. The campaign lasted a long time." Line 22, 3, 4, etc. But you should practice the commandments and so on. So again, here's another version of things from the Reubenite Transjordan tribes. By the way, the people in Jordan should be worried because if the Jews really went according to the Bible, they'd be across Jordan too. And they wouldn't have let the British administration divide up the country after World War I in the way that they did and chop 2/3 of it away and give it to the emir of Mecca for services rendered in the First World War. They would have not allowed. They wouldn't have accepted that. But now the whole world, as I said, poetry is true in history. The whole world just says, "Oh, Jordan's a fact." How is Jordan a fact? Only because the British Mandate authorities gave Jordan to a friend of theirs. It's only been in existence for, well, maybe 80 years. It's a lot now, but at the time when all this was going on, it was only in 1947, all the warfare. It was only in existence 25 years. Who said, why is Jordan a legitimate country and Israel isn't? I'd like to know. How come no one ever goes to the UN and says, Jordan, you have no right to exist? You follow what I'm saying? How come? How come? How come? Because people are absolutely idiotic. And poetry is true. The simple fact is much more important to them than the complex fact. The complex fact is all this here. The simple fact is, oh, Jordan is a country, it's a recognized country, it must be a legitimate country. Iraq, again, another country that the British created out of the multiple facets, as we now see. 3 groups of people that absolutely hate each other. Why is it sacrosanct that Iraq exists? Who put down this law in the universe that Iraq is a sacred place? Why can't the Kurds have their country? Why can't the Shiites have their country? So on and so forth. Any case, here is the presentation of the Transjordanites. Joshua discharged us. We were fine. We did our service fine. So, line 9, they went home. They went back to the land of Gilead. This area, by the way, is called Gilead, across in that area where I circled in Transjordan. I'll write it on the board here. Gilead. I think that actually is Gad with God mixed into it, you see? Same way Yehuda, Judah, is sort of like, or is like Yahweh with a D added into it. You know, I think there's something there. I don't know, but I'm sure that Gad and Gilead are related words, just as Judah and Yahweh are related words. These are things that interest me. I mean, these are things that I can say something like. Again, I can't tell you anything about theology, you know, what people should conclude from all this. Anyway, so here they are, and so when they came to the circle of stones, line 10, because they were leaving Joshua's service like the troops had been dismissed, and look at that, which are in Canaanite territory. Now the circle of stones, Gilgal, isn't even part of the conquest anymore, which are in Canaanite territory. And now the circle of stones are like some old shrine there. Probably didn't even know the tradition that they are commemorate where Joshua crossed the river Jordan. This book has a lot of interesting stuff. I don't have time in my life to deal with it. Maybe one of you will. So anyway, see, look, the Reubenites, Gadites have built an altar facing the land of Canaan with a circle of stones. So that's how rumors get started. Now another, they're blamed for a Canaanite shrine, and I guess the point is that they're gossiping about them, that they've become pagans or something. So here, line 16, this is so weird. Yeah, I guess it is weird. They sent a message. This is our message to you from the whole community of Yahweh. What do you mean, this treachery committed against the God of Israel? Why did you turn aside from Yahweh and build yourself an altar? It's a pagan altar then they're talking about. So now someone's blaming them for something, and then so a plague. This is very odd stuff. Interesting, very interesting. I wouldn't know what to make of it. And you make us accomplices, line 19 and 20, in the rebellion by building an altar to vie with the altar of God when Achan, son of Zara, betrayed his trust. This is so complicated. And they said, no, we're not doing this. Line 29, look, we have no intention of defying Yahweh or turning away from him, or vie with the altar of Yahweh wherever it happens to be at the moment. Anyway, I don't know what the outcome of all that ill will between the different places is, but in 23 we get on to something else. Joshua's death. He's old and advanced in years. The Lord, line 4, fought for him. There are areas still need to be conquered. No less than those I wiped out between Jordan and the Great Sea. Again, a lot of bragging going on here. And now he's going to give his funeral farewell speech. Therefore stand firm, fulfill what is written in the book of the law, don't turn to the right or left, and don't mingle with the people left behind. If you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, you'll know that that's in the Damascus document at the end. Don't move to the right or the left of the Torah. and so on and so forth. So, you going someplace? Oh, I thought you were
Just
packing.
stretching.
Oh, stretching, okay. But that's in the last column of the Damascus talk. Anyway, 24, he does give his funeral oration here. He gathers everyone together, and this speech, as I think I've told you, if you don't have to agree with me, if you look carefully at Stephen's speech in the book of Acts, it's pretty much, I think, based on this speech in Joshua here, giving the whole history of the people. If you look at the speech of Stephen in Acts to the Jewish Sanhedrin, it starts with Yahweh, the God of Israel in ancient days, lived beyond the river. He basically runs through the whole history the same as Joshua does here, and cites a lot of the same things here. But in any case, Joshua finishes, he made a covenant, line 25, with the people. They should fear Yahweh, line 14. And he laid down the law for them at Shechem, the capital of Ephraim, later the capital of Israel. And he wrote these words in the book of the law of God. Is that what you have? The book of, I don't know what the book of the law of God is, whether it's this book or some other book we don't have. Line 26 and 27. And he put up a stone, so it's another tradition associated with Shechem now. These are all the things Joshua son of Nun, the servant of Yahweh, after these things rather, Joshua son of Nun, servant of Yahweh, died. He died. He's dead. Okay? He was 110 years old. They buried him and he received his inheritance and so on. Look at this little note, 32. The bones of Joseph, which the sons of Israel brought from Egypt. So they were walking around with the bones of Joseph this whole time, theoretically. Were buried at Shechem too. This is really important for the Stephen speech. This is why I think the Stephen speech is based on this. Because this is the mistake Stephen makes in his speech. That he says, and the tomb that Abraham bought at Shechem from Hamor, the father of Shechem. And it's right here. It's actually the tomb of Joseph, but he's read it so fast, the author of Acts. And he skimmed over it and just sort of like, he's picking stuff out, he's not looking at that carefully, and therefore he has Stephen make this error about what Abraham bought. No, it's the tomb Jacob bought. Again, I can show you exactly the passage in Acts. I showed it to you before. I don't want to argue about it. You decide what you think of it. I just show it to you, but here's Stephen's speech, chapter 7 of Acts. He replied, my brothers, my fathers, listen, the God of glory appeared to our ancestor Abraham while he was in Mesopotamia. And he goes on to tell all the Jews their own history, as if they didn't know it. And gives them all this history. And then he says here in line 14, and Joseph sent for his father Jacob and the whole family. And Jacob went down to Egypt. And after he and our ancestors had died there, their bodies were brought back to Shechem. Oh yeah, that's in here, right? That is there. But only Joseph's body was brought back to there, and buried in the tomb that Abraham bought and paid for from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem. You see how he's given away where he took this material from? That is the key to show you how authors are working. Stephen never made that speech. That's taken right out of the book of Joshua here, but the writer clumsily has not redacted it completely accurately. And I know you don't like when I say that, but the point is no one's ever questioned it anyway, till me. And I don't think I've ever read a question about that speech for 2,000 years, which doesn't make me very smart. It just shows, again, I know you get angry at me, but how stupid I think most people are in terms of how they read things. Not that stupid people. They know how to live, they know how to make a living, they're very clever in their day-to-day life and so on, but when they read, they don't read with insight and depth. And anybody, you could have found that out in 2 ticks if you read carefully yourself. Anyone could have read carefully. Because you immediately see, oh, wait a minute. Stephen, Abraham didn't buy anything from Hamor, the son of Shechem. Joseph did. And that's where Joseph's buried. Or Jacob did, rather. And that's where Joseph, even I got mixed up already. That's where Joseph's buried. And then I'd go back and say, oh my God, that's what happened to me. Look, there's the speech Stephen's making in chapter 24. Makes biblical studies a lot of fun to me. I mean, that's sorry. Judges. Don't agree with me, I don't mind. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites, if you can make this stuff more interesting than I am, I wish you well. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites consulted the Lord Yahweh, which of us shall march up first against the Canaanites to attack them? Okay, that seems to carry on here. Judah is to attack first. So, once again, nothing's been conquered. Everything is at standstill. It's like, did you see that movie Groundhog Day? It's like it keeps going back, starting again, back, starting again, you know. Everything's at a standstill. But I think that the scholars answer their multiple source hypothesis. I'm not able to give the final answer at all. Notice here, line 16. Caleb is a big hero here. Judah marched against the Canaanites, line 10. Caleb is their leader. He conquered Othniel, son of Kenaz, or the man who captured it was Othniel, son of Kenaz. He's one of the judges, Othniel, son of Kenaz, line 13 there. So Caleb gave the upper springs and the lower springs, and the sons of Hobab the Kenite. That's in some other books, but now look, the father-in-law of Moses is not Jethro, he's not Ruel, he's now Hobab the Kenite. 3 different names for the name of Moses' father-in-law, okay? And they were with the Judites, so they were connected, and that's not surprising. Judah's in the south, and the rest of the people are not far in Sinai there. It wouldn't be surprising if they were together in some way. But look here, Judah did not take Gaza, nor Ashkelon, nor Ekron, because the inhabitants had iron chariots. Line 19. Now I heard that in Judges. So that's the same writer there who's been writing in Judges, in Joshua. But it's a different tradition to some extent. And I think that he doesn't call them Philistines, but I think in fact he doesn't call them Canaanites either. And as Moses was directed, line 20, Hebron was given to Caleb. I don't know when Moses directed that, but I have to look back at the other books. And he drove the 3 sons of the giant out, but the Jebusites live in Jerusalem. The sons of Benjamin did not drive them out, 21, and even now the Jebusites are still living in Benjamin. Okay, that's basically recapitulating the stuff, the same material. Now on to the house of Joseph. So this is like an introduction to Judges, recapitulating some of Joshua material. That's fair enough. Someone else is writing a new book. Joseph, the house of Joseph made a reconnaissance at Bethel, which is the later shrine of the north. All the prophets will go to Bethel to prophesy, we'll see. But they didn't drive them out, line 28 again, and again this tradition is repeated. Ephraim didn't drive the Canaanites out of Gezer, so this is basically the same tradition that we have, only Joshua is alive again. Chapter 2. The angel of Yahweh, that introduction seems a bit more detailed than Joshua because it knows about Amorites, it knows about Canaanites, it knows about a lot of different groups. The Canaanites remain, line 30, in Zebulun, for instance. The Asherites live among the Canaanites today. That's a northern, so the Canaanites never got driven out of anywhere, according to this other text. 2, the angel of Yahweh went up to Gilgal, from Gilgal to Bethel. So, I shall never break my covenant with you, the angel says. You must make no covenant with the inhabitants of the country. You must destroy their altars. Otherwise they will become a snare for you. Well, I thought they already did all that. So again, the historian is saying, you didn't do it very well. You should have done it better. And we have all these problems and you didn't do it. Okay, I don't have the answer to that. Only Joshua told the people to go, line 6, and he was 110 years old and he was buried. We had that in the other book. Okay, it can be repeated here. And so now the presentation of this book is line 16. Yahweh appointed judges for them and rescued the men of Israel from the hands of their plunderers. But they would not listen to their judges. They prostituted themselves to other gods, bowed down before them. Line 17 and 18. They left the path the ancestors had trodden. Now, some of you are doing Islam with me, and you know that the Sunnah I told you is the path the ancestors have trodden. So basically, that's like what Sunni Islam is. Sunnah is the path that was trodden in the desert by the ancestors. When Yahweh appointed judges for them, Yahweh was with the judge and rescued them. And so that's going to be the background of this new book, which are 12 instances of judges that are going to help them in this mess that they're involved in the country, more or less like today, where nothing has been resolved and the whole thing is in total chaos. And no absolute conquest has taken place. And constantly, charismatic leaders have to arise to do something. That's the presentation. This is a very well-constructed book in that sense. If you count the number of judges, it'll be 12. Doesn't say that, but if you count them up, I think you'll find 12 judges. And if you look carefully, more or less one is for each tribe. So each tribe is getting his or its share of the glory here. Again, it's a structured book with 12 judge tribes, a 12 judge tribe structure, and each judge comes from a given tribe. So Othniel, if you want to look at it carefully, you'll see it. Othniel is from Judah. Ehud, let's see, so Othniel is from Judah. That's line 7 of chapter 3. Then Ehud, line 15, what tribe is he from? Benjamin. He's a Benjaminite. He was left-handed. Glad to hear it. That's about all they know about it. But anyway, let's go back here before we go there. I just want to show you what the structure is. The structure is, this is the background. Okay, the writer is giving us the original material that we had earlier. Yahweh's anger flared, line 20 of chapter 2, against Israel. You broke my covenant. You didn't do what I told you to do. So I will not evict the nations before you. This is how this author puts it. This is why this has happened. If you want your theology, there it is. This is why this happened, because you didn't follow my instructions. The mess you're in now is you didn't follow my instructions. We could say that about America today in almost every country if you want. It's a test. Line 22. The nations will test you. You did not trod the path that the ancestors laid down for you. And so he allowed these nations to stay here. This is like a guy giving a sermon here. It could be in your church or synagogue, your minister. This is what you did wrong. You didn't do this, and therefore you're suffered for. And a lot of people feel that about their life. I didn't do such and such, and it's a very powerful feeling most people have. So again, you want to get theology, that's the kind of theology you have. It suits people's mindset to think like this. And there may be some truth in it. I know my wife always thinks because of some sin she's done that terrible things have happened. And she racks her brain and she goes back into the past 40 years and she just turns over everything in her mind. She stays awake all night. Oh God, it's on her. She stays awake all night long. She got, poor thing. I feel sorry for her. All the sins that she's trying to find out. She worries. Every sickness, everything that goes wrong is because of some horrible thing that wasn't done right back then. Most people think this way. They have to. They don't have any other explanation for anything. What other explanation is there? Life is so short. Again, I'm not a preacher, so I don't have an explanation myself for it. Anyway, so they were tested. All this is being tested. So that's the structure. 7, Israel did what displeased Yahweh. They forgot Yahweh. It's just a sort of a chant, a refrain. And they cried to Yahweh. So they raised up a deliverer, Othniel, Caleb's younger brother. And what did Othniel do? Well, he just did one thing, and then the land enjoyed rest for 40 years. Do we really believe that? No, that's just a refrain, a phrase. 40 years means a long time. That's the way, so, so the next one, Israel did what displeased Yahweh. And the Moabites got around. That's the group from across Jordan. Eglon was causing trouble and made an alliance with Amnon and Amalek and all these neighboring peoples. Kenites, and they were under the control of this people for 18 years. And another deliverer came up, Ehud the Benjaminite, and he was left-handed. And he had a big knife or sword or dagger, and he had it under his clothes, and Eglon was a fat man. And again, notice Gilgal is line 19 where idols are. There's no Joshua shrine at Gilgal. That's another reinterpretation of the earlier book. But see, because he was left-handed, he could draw out his dagger and thrust it into the king's belly. It's pretty bloodthirsty stuff. And okay, that's what Ehud did. He's a great chap. He shoved his dagger into. But look, you say, this is all you have here? Yeah. Do you have anything about your ancestors 40 generations back? It's something. I'm sure something like that happened because it's stuck in the, but whether it's in this structure or not is another one. After him came Shamgar. I love Shamgar, 31. And he routed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. That's the end of Shamgar. That's all we know. But see, the Philistines are mentioned, though. They are here. So that's just a bit of oral history. It's like saying, who can I think of? George Harrison passed away. Peace unto him. George Harrison, he was a great singer. He introduced Maharishi Mahesh Yogi to America. That's it. That would be what someone might write 100 years from now. Just remembered it. Same as this. Shamgar, this is what he did. He routed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. He was a Medal of Honor winner. He was a Medal of Honor winner. We don't know what tribe he was, but if you make a list of all the tribes, I think you can probably figure out which tribe is missing, and then you'll be able to put him in that tribe. I think I have here probably Asher or Naphtali. It will be what he would have been. And then we have Deborah, a wonderful story about Deborah, who's a prophetess. They're being oppressed now because of the iron chariot situation, line 4-3. And she was a judge and a prophetess. She had a palm tree between Ramah and Bethel in the highlands of Ephraim. And they came to her to settle disputes. This is old material, you see, but the main judge here is not her. A lot of it comes from the song that she sings, just like Miriam sang a song in Exodus. Now, Deborah is going to sing a song in chapter 5 here. But the judge here is Barak. So he is Naphtali. So that's, Naphtali is this one. So Shamgar must be Asher, I think. Let's say Shamgar is Asher anyway. So Barak is definitely Naphtali. And most of you may have known it. If you don't know the story, you can read it. But Barak is going to fight this person called Sisera. And in the process, line 11, chapter 4, Heber the Kenite is noted of the tribe of Cain, of the clan of the sons of Hobab. So these Kenites, connected to Moses' family, are living among the Israelites. And they look like something to do with Cain, actually, or the original Cain genealogy adheres to them. Anyway, they're metal workers, as it turns out. And there's something very interesting about the Kenites to watch. They're supposed to be Moses' father-in-laws, his relatives. That's very interesting how they pop up. I just call your attention to them. I can't say anything more than that, but they do keep popping up in these traditions. Anyway, this is a story of Sisera and Barak and Deborah. And Barak defeated him and pursued him, and he killed his whole army with the edge of the sword, line 16, and no one escaped except Sisera. Now here's another story, intersperses this one, not about Barak, not about Deborah, but now about Yael. And she's a Kenite. She's the wife of Heber, and maybe the word Hebrews even come from there, the Heber the Kenite. I have no idea. And she finds this Sisera character Yah-el. That's a double God name. Yah is Yahweh, El is Elohim. She's a double God. She's got a double God name. Yah-el. In Hebrew, it's Yael. Here is Jael, but that's not what her name is. Her name is Yael. Beautiful Hebrew name, I think. But she's actually a Kenite, or at least she's married to a Kenite. Anyway, as any good Hebrew heroine should do, when she gets a chance and this enemy chieftain is lying in his tent, what does she do? This is to encourage your daughters of your country to be brave. She gets a tent peg and drives it through his temple, line 22. I'm not going to find much theology here, but still, it's interesting encouragement for women to be strong, and it's pro-feminist, if you want, that women can do as good as men, if you want to say that. And then Deborah sings a song. Unbind your hair, warriors of Israel, line 5-2. This is a song of Yahweh. I will glorify the Yahweh the God. So the poets are singing about Yahweh the God of Israel. The heavens quaked. The mountains melted. Ah, how many have read the Quran? You know those chapters Muhammad has, and the hills quaked, and the heavens were like a hill of running sand, and things like that. That's already started in this song right here. The heavens quaked, the clouds of the mountains melted. That's what Muhammad's always visioning in the Quran. Always. The hills became a heap of running sand. And then she mentioned Shamgar. This, I think, again, as I usually, this is a very old song, the same as the song of Miriam is, the same as the Stele is. This is often what the other stories are based on, an old song by Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, 1300 BC, or Roberta Dylan here. This is attributed to a prophetess. Dead are Israel's villages. Rise up, Deborah, mother of Israel. You who ride on white she-asses, line 10. Awake, awake, Deborah, awake, awake. Take heart, Barak, rise. This is an old battle hymn. Ephraim's princes are in the valley. Benjamin joins your ranks. Zebulon's on. Naphtali in the Barak. Here are the streams of Reuben. Gilead stayed beyond Jordan. Why is Dan in the ships of strangers? Line 17. Asher kept to the seacoast. All the tribes are mentioned here, but interesting, what's Dan doing in the ships of strangers? Dan is allied with the Phoenicians. He's along the coast, so it's not even clear how Dan and the Phoenicians are really different. And that's how Jews got all the way to Spain and Carthage and all these other places, because they were traveling with the Phoenicians in those days of commerce in the Mediterranean in 1200 BC or thereabouts. And this little song references it. Also, there's some anger at Gilead here that will be expressed at the end of the book of Judges. And finally, line 24, not blessed be Mary among women, blessed be Yael among women, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because what did she do? She put a peg in Sisera's head. That's not as nice as what Mary did, I grant you. But it's a different time, a different place, a different culture. It's celebrating her bravery. And so on and so forth. So perish all the enemies. I don't know what the tune of this song was, but it's a very old piece of poetry, music. I'm sure someone sat and sang it with a lyre or something like that. And the land enjoyed rest for 40 years. Oh, that's the refrain. The land enjoyed rest for 40 years. Look, I just want to quickly show you one thing before we finish this up after the break. But if you go over here to the end of this book, you'll see chapter 19. There's a story here, line 9, chapter 19, about how this Levite was traveling around in this Benjaminite area, Gibeah, which is where Saul comes from. That may have something to do with it. My belt is loosening again here, but hopefully. And we have a lot of those problems there, and ultimately we have a story about how the Benjaminites are almost wiped out, and then the Israelites get really angry and go and attack the Transjordanites, I think. I don't know if I'm not mistaken, but we'll see if that's the case. I forget what they did after this, or maybe not. They just have to check. But there's some problem with Benjamin here that is alluded to. A last point before we have a break. How many have ever heard of the story of Judith in the Old Testament? Not the Judith who waylays, well, no, that is true. Okay, Judith, and it is a book. I was thinking of Tamar. Getting them mixed up. Judith, how many have read that book of Judith or know the story? It's the same as this, isn't it? Instead of, she's the one who puts the tent peg or something into the head of Sisera or something like that. That's what that story is. So it's another story on this tradition. Now it's Judith. Judith is a female Judah. In other words, Yehudit and Yehudah. Yehudah is the male. So someone has taken that story and Judaized it. You follow what I'm trying to say? And made another story out of it. Well, writers do that all of the time. But the story of Judith, the book of Judith, it's not in the Jewish Old Testament, it's in the Catholic Old Testament. It's in this book too, somewhere I think. It's in here probably. I'm not sure if it should be in here if it's a Catholic Bible. Huh? Yeah, well this should contain the Apocrypha. This is a Catholic Bible we're using here for that reason. It's what the Protestants and the Jews would call the Apocrypha, but I'm not sure I see it in here. Wisdom. I don't see it offhand, but it should be in here some. Oh, here it is, Judith. They've got it before the book of the Maccabees here. They've got it, they've got Tobit. Here's Judith. Yeah, it's the Catholic Bible, so it's based on the Greek Septuagint. I'm not even sure who the enemy is. Oh, it's a different enemy, but it's the same basic story. It's not Sisera. I guess it's Holofernes or someone. In any case, she does that. She goes into his tent and kills him. The same way that Yael does. It may be a different, yeah, it's Holofernes or something. Okay, have a break. Should have let go 5 minutes ago. See you in 10 minutes. We'll finish this up. And next time we'll look at the prophets. Amos, Micah, Hosea. Oh, here's a, we should pass this around before anyone, here. Yeah, thanks, it's really good you told me.